Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, set to face embezzlement charges, Isabel dos Santos says all her business activities were approved by lawyers, banks and regulators. This as another suspect in Angola's corruption case against Africa's richest woman is found dead in Lisbon in what looks like suicide. Also, homes around Abidjan airport are levelled as part of a crackdown on illegal construction that followed the death of a boy who stowed away on a plane from the Ivorian capital to Paris. And a dangerous beat. Somalia is one of the most difficult countries in the world to be a journalist. Unions there are calling on President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo to hold off from signing a bill they fear will further undermine press freedoms. But first, the casualties continue to pile up from the corruption probe into Africa's richest woman. A banker implicated in the money-laundering case against Isabel dos Santos was found dead in a suspected suicide in Lisbon on Thursday. Nina da Cunha had also been named by Angolan prosecutors trying to recover over 1 billion euros they believe dos Santos siphoned off from state funds over the decades. The head of one of Angola's largest banks has also resigned because of the scrutiny. Camille Nedlek tells us more.
Angola's former first daughter has been charged by prosecutors, and the list is long.
Isabel dos Santos is accused of mismanagement and embezzlement of funds during her tenure at Sonangol and is thus provisionally charged with the crimes of money laundering, influence peddling, harmful management, forgery of documents, among other economic crimes.
Investigations were opened into Isabel dos Santos' time as the chair of state-owned oil firm Sonangol. The businesswoman also holds a number of stakes in several important companies in Portugal, Angola's former colonial ruler, including the bank Eurobic. Its head, Nuno Ribeiro da Cunha, managed Sonangol's account. He was also named by prosecutors and found dead a few hours later from suspected suicide. Another suspect, also head of a bank, has resigned. Dos Santos is the daughter of former President José Eduardo dos Santos, who led Angola for almost 40 years. The Luanda leaks scoop released over the weekend revealed that during that time, the so-called Princess of Luanda was able to amass a personal fortune of over $1 billion of public money. Africa's richest woman, Dos Santos denies the accusations and claims her wealth was self-made. She said on Thursday that she is ready to clear her name in international courts. But authorities want her to face trial at home. She hasn't returned to Angola in over a year. According to Portuguese media, Angola could issue an international arrest warrant for her if she fails to cooperate with the investigation.
Thousands of people living near Abidjan airport have been made homeless after their illegally built houses were destroyed on Thursday. The buildings were razed to the ground to create a safety buffer around the airport. The crackdown's in response to the death of a young stowaway who snuck into the undercarriage of an Air France plane that arrived in Paris earlier this month. He's thought to have got on board before it took off from Abidjan. Our team sent us this report.
Bulldozers started their work at dawn. For this young woman, her whole life is torn apart in front of her. She's inconsolable as the house she shared with her large family is reduced to rubble.
It's our house. This is where we live. I've been here 15 years. We have nothing. Today they come and destroy all this. Where are we going to go?
Those living around the airport thought they'd been given a 45-day notice period to move out. But around 4 a.m. on Thursday morning, they were suddenly woken by the police.
They started by waking everyone up to get out. I couldn't even pack anything. They just demolished the house with everything in. We're here and we don't know where to go. We've no money and our children go to school here. We don't know what to do.
These dwellings, put up illegally, would have been knocked down sooner or later. The authorities want to secure the area to avoid any future trespassing. But people living here, for the most part very poor, feel like they're being held responsible for the death of that teenager who was found in the plane's landing gear earlier this month.
You can't just kick people out just because a kid got himself killed going off on an adventure.
We're here by the airport. To my left is the perimeter fence, and over to my right we have some of the houses. People are already trying to salvage materials. These will be knocked down today, but this is within the 50-meter exclusion zone from the perimeter, though we've already seen demolition work going on hundreds of meters away from here.
The distress is visible on every face. A little further away, before the inescapable arrival of the bulldozers, people are doing all they can to salvage building materials. No one knows where they'll be spending the night. After the machines have done their work, almost nothing is left. Some people wander through the wreckage in search of anything of value. Others are starting to leave. Most do not know where they'll go tomorrow.
7 people were killed by militia in Jugu in northeastern DR Congo on Thursday. Another 15 were kidnapped. It all happened as the UN's Human Rights Commissioner visited nearby Ituri province, which has suffered a wave of murders as part of decades of violence that have plagued the region. Much of it is a legacy from the 2 devastating Congo wars of the 1990s. Millions were killed when Lendu farmers and Hema herders clashed between 1996 and 2003. Now, this weekend, France 24 will be airing a documentary on the devastating fallout of those conflicts. Our team, Nicolas Chemin and Thomas Nicolan, went to speak to some of those who are still tormented by memories of those that they lost.
Can you tell us what happened here during the First Congo War?
Every time I tell the story, it's really painful. When the shell fell on our neighbour's house, we were outside, and the shrapnel got into her eye, and she died immediately. She didn't have time to say anything.
Well, to hear more accounts from this little understood conflict, do watch DR Congo Wars, Crimes and No Punishment. That will be on Saturday at 9:15 Paris time on France 24, or you can also find it on our website from Friday. In other news, it is dangerous work being a journalist in Somalia, where reporters have faced state intimidation, censorship, and retaliatory attacks from al-Shabaab extremists over the years. Now, members of the media are calling on President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, also known as President Farmajo, not to sign a newly approved media bill into law. Critics have called the provisions passed by the upper house on the 14th draconian, and they fear that it will put journalists in danger. Earlier, I spoke to Omar Farouk Osman Noor, the Secretary General of the National Union of Somali Journalists. I asked him exactly what he was worried about with the new bill.
First of all, the media law is repressive, and there are several provisions. And some of them are, for example, the registration of journalists is under a regulatory body which is controlled by the Ministry of Information, as well as the curtailing the rights of journalists to protect their confidential sources. The prosecutorial procedure, which is this media law is paving the way in terms of, media crimes, quote unquote. And as well as what is really very disturbing is defining who is a journalist and who can be a journalist. And the way that the Code of Ethics of Journalists is being stipulated in the media law, it's really very worrisome, because this matter of the Code of Ethics, the registration, journalistic ID card is, for us, we believe this is a self-regulatory matter. It is not a matter where politicians or governmental institutions have to dictate either in law or in other ways or policies. So this is a very dangerous media law. And if it implemented, it will ruin the human rights legacy of President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo. And as you know, the country has made important progress for the past 2 years in terms of, conducive environment for journalists with regard to the government. And there have been cases of impunity that the government has tackled. The dialogue and the engagement between journalists and the government has improved. But all this progress will be ruined by this dangerous and repressive media law.
But if you believe that the environment is actually moving in the right direction under Farmajo. Why not have more confidence or faith? Why do you not have more faith that the provisions in this law will actually work to your benefit? For example, the registering of journalists, the having press cards is pretty standard practice in many other countries. So why are you so cynical about it working in Somalia?
Well, if you look at the provisions of this law, and if you look at the authority that is said to be issuing the press cards, which is a government controlled, and you see that the same people who have been, behind the repression against journalists are the proponents of this media bill, then that gives every reason for us, the journalistic community, to be very concerned. For instance, if somebody whom you know that has been responsible for the oppression of journalists for many years says, I am going to be the registrar of journalists, I am the one who is going to issue the press cards, which we strongly believe it should be left for the professional bodies to issue the press cards, or an independent body with journalists in trust. This is where the problem is. But if you look at it, this is just a minor, but if you look at in a number of ways, for example, the word courts, competent courts, is mentioned in this bill 16 times, which shows the emphasis that is being given for prosecutorial action against, undefined media crimes. For instance, as well, there are fines which are not stipulated or which are not stated in the media law. And it says that it will have a separate law, fines against the media crimes. So who is going to determine how much, what will be that law? And the bill is vaguely worded. If you see it, there are a lot of words which have been will hurt press freedom and the freedom of journalists to independently and critically report on issues of public interest.
Why would President Farmajo not sign a bill that's already been passed? I mean, why do you believe that there's enough space between it being passed by the upper house and it being signed for you to get what you want?
Yeah, because the president is, first of all, the custodian of the Constitution of the Republic. And this law is against the Constitution of the country. And more so is that the president has the constitutional right to send back a law or a bill that he deems or he makes a judgment that this law is contrary to the constitution of the country or is against the interests of the nation. And this is something that is concerning the democracy, the transition to democratic governance in our country. And especially the country is heading elections.
Now, the NBA has been ploughing more resources into expanding its presence into Africa. And this Thursday in Paris, the head of NBA Africa presented the teams of its new Basketball African Pro League, a competition between the best squads from the continent. And he said that the potential and opportunities of the game go beyond players' talents on the court.
Today we are creating the Basketball Africa League to create not only participation opportunity for young people in the sport, but young people with talent, an opportunity to monetize the talent through the Basketball Africa League. And in our grassroots activity, we encourage them to stay in school to make sure that, they're not just obsessed with basketball. We want them to be obsessed and passionate about basketball, but we also want them to be obsessed and passionate about becoming successful in life through education and through just having a holistic approach to their own development.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Notre-Dame-des-Landes, a small village in the west of France that has become a symbol of environmental resistance. At the heart of the battle, the creation of an exclusion zone to prevent the building of an airport.
On s'est battu aussi contre un aéroport, mais pour une société différente, et on continue à se battre pour ça.
The handful of activists who are still on site are trying to create a mini-society that is both libertarian and anti-capitalist.
À ceux qui restent, je leur fais parfaitement confiance. Quand on les voit vivre, ils ont une capacité d'initiative dont je suis toujours admiratif.
Notre-Dame-des-Landes revisited all this week here on France 24.